How do you test fish for doneness? Do you just separate the flakes or do you use a thermometer? It comes as a surprise to my students that I don't use a thermometer for fish. I pick inside. I know. I am usually obsessed with accurate measurements, so I can see this being completely out of character for me. Why no thermometer, you ask? There are a few reasons. Most fish are not thick enough for a thermometer. If your fish is thinner than an inch, a thermometer is useless. You can certainly stick in the probe and get a reading, but that's not likely to catch the very center where the temperature is the coolest. But what about thick fish? You see, I'm a creature of habit just like you. Fish is the first thing I learned to cook. It was before my obsessive measurement days. I became very precise when I started teaching because I wanted to give people recipes that work. And lately, I've been wondering, is it possible that a thermometer is a good idea? So I gave it a go. I cooked 3 different fish: swordfish, salmon, and cod. All of them were about 1 inch thick, so a thermometer could give me a good reading. When you use a thermometer, you need to know 2 temperatures. The target temperature is the max you want your fish to reach during rest. Off the heat temperature is usually way below the target. That's the point at which you take the fish off the heat. Since I don't normally use a thermometer for fish, I didn't know either one. All I knew was that USDA recommends that you cook your fish to 145. I was sure that would be crazy dry. No chefs do that, but what would be better? 135? 125? I had a hunch that it might depend on the fish type, but I wasn't sure. So here's what I decided to do. I tested the fish using my normal method of peeking inside and immediately stuck in a thermometer to measure off the heat temperature. I left the thermometer in for 5 minutes to see how much the temperature would rise to figure out the target. This was eye-opening. Let's start with salmon. I broiled it and then finished it in the oven at 350, just until the flakes separated. But the inside was still orange and translucent. Turns out that was about 109. After a 5-minute rest, it got to about 124. Here is what that looked like. I seared swordfish on both sides for about 3 to 4 minutes. Since swordfish doesn't flake, I made a little cut in the thickest part. I was looking for the center to still look raw. At this stage, the fish was about 111. In 5 minutes, it got to 131. Here's what that looked like. Since cod has a tendency to dry out and fall apart, I wanted a gentle cooking method and a lot of padding. I put it on a layer of lemon slices and heavy cream, topped it with buttered breadcrumbs and baked at 400, just until it flaked. The temperature was a whopping 139. I thought surely I overcooked it, but it came out beautifully moist and tender. Sorry, I forgot to measure how much it went up. So, what temperature should you cook your fish to? That depends. If it's salmon, I'd shoot for 120 to 125, for swordfish 130 to 135, for cod 140 to 145. But even if you know this, it doesn't tell you when to take the fish off the heat. It depends on the cooking method. Swordfish went up so much because it was cooked on both sides using fairly high heat. Salmon was cooked primarily from the top, so it went up less. Cod was not only cooked with the indirect heat of the oven, but also padded from top and bottom, so it went up even less. I don't know the exact number, but it didn't look very different after the rest, while salmon and swordfish looked significantly more cooked. So what do you do with all this information? Personally, I find a fork or some other primitive device a lot simpler. I don't want to memorize the target temperatures for every type of fish. I also don't want to jump through the mental hoops to calculate how much the temperature might go up based on the exact thickness of the fish and my cooking method. Separating the flakes is so much easier. The only fish that can benefit from a thermometer, in my opinion, is swordfish. It's typically thick enough for a thermometer and almost always cooked with direct high heat. If making little cod bothers your sense of aesthetic, try taking the fish off the heat around 115 and resting it to 135. I know in the video mine is lower, but I think it could be cooked just a hair longer. I hope this video helps you produce juicy fish. Here are more thought-provoking culinary videos for you to check out, and if you are ever in the Boston area, maybe I'll see you in one of my classes.